We're going to open the meeting at 5:31 for the 2023 Tax Incentive Review Council agenda. We're going to stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance. What? I asked about attendance. It's not on here. What's the call on attendance? Well, you had said that in the last minutes, but it's not on this agenda. That's why I asked David in the beginning. So, David, your call since you typed this up.
Yeah, we need to do an attendance.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll do roll call.
You want to call it?
Okay, I'm not going to do it now. No, I can do it in alphabetical order. Greg Jarvis.
Here.
Over here. And then that's W. Then it's Kathy Ulrich, here. Dan Unger.
Here.
Matt Wallert.
Here.
And Amy Wells.
Here.
Okay. Now we can do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
justice for all.
And then our moment of meditation, just let's say a few prayers for all the families out there that just need some help these days. All right. Okay, we're off to new business. And David's leaving. Okay. The first new business, number A, is a motion to appoint the chairperson for the TIRC for this meeting.
I motion that we appoint Greg Jarvis as the chairperson for the TIRC for this meeting.
And I second.
Is there any other nominations?
None for me.
We got
None.
none? Okay, so then I guess we have to take a vote.
Yes.
Okay, so that would go to Mr. Jarvis.
I'll abstain.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then I will say yes, Kathy Ulrich, Dan Unger,
Yes.
Matt Waller.
Yes. Yes.
And Amy Wells? Okay. That's a four, Greg Jarvis. Okay. The item B is motion to adopt the minutes from the March 9th, 2021 TIRC meeting.
I'll motion to adopt the minutes from the March 9th, 2021 TRC meeting is provided in the meeting packet.
I will second it.
Any discussion?
None from me.
None.
Okay. So now we have to vote on. Here we go. Okay. Craig Jarvis, please.
Aye.
He would have to abstain. He was not here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I wasn't here either, so that's what.
He would probably have to abstain also.
Okay. Okay, so then you're next, Dan Unger.
Yes, I vote to approve the minutes.
Matt Waller.
Yes.
Kathy Ulrich is abstaining, and Amy Wells.
Yes.
Okay. So that is a
302.
I was going to say 302 vote. Okay. Item C, motion to accept the 2021 and 2022 annual status report worksheet for Colerain Township, Colerain Town Center TIF. And anybody's watching this, that is in the package in minutes. So,
I motion that we accept the 2021-2022 Colerain Town Center TIF numbers as presented.
I'll second that.
okay. Any discussion?
None.
None?
No, none.
Okay. Okay, so we'll take a vote on that. And Mr. Greg Jarvis?
Yes.
Sorry. What are you saying? Greg's the chair now. You're the chair now, so you can take over.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
Well, I'll pick,
Where we're voting on,
we're voting,
on item C.
yes, on item C, on the, is there any further discussion on the report that was submitted?
None from me.
None for me.
Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay.
So I have a point of parliamentary procedure here. I motion that we name Ms. Ulrich as secretary for this meeting. for the purposes of calling roll on each item.
I think that, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we, generally, we don't do an all-call vote, we do a roll call on every vote.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Okay.
So, with that said, could we go back to the previous one and vote that, or there's a roll call vote?
Yes, and with parliamentary procedures, that's why we do it in alphabetical order. Okay, so it's,
Do you want to do it? I mean,
since are you naming secretary, or do you want the
Yeah, I'm
chairman?
naming you secretary, so at this point, we would have to have have a vote on secretary.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the motion is,
Second Matt's motion to name Kathy as secretary.
All right, so since you've been doing it, why don't you go ahead and do the roll call?
okay, so you want a roll call for me being secretary?
Yep,
That's-
yep.
Okay, the roll call for Kathy Arch being the secretary of this meeting, Mr. Greg Jarvis,
yes.
Mr. Dan Unger,
Yes?
Mr. Matt Waller.
Yes?
Kathy Arch abstains. Amy Wells?
Yes.
Okay, so that is a 4-0-1 vote.
And again, sorry to be a pain, but at this point, I'd like to revisit the report worksheet for Colerain Town Center TIF and have a roll call vote on that item.
Okay, roll call again on item C. So we got Greg Jarvis,
Yes.
Kathy Ulrich, yes, Dan Unger,
Yes?
Matt Waller.
Yes.
And Amy Wells.
Yes.
So that's a 5-0, so that passes. Item, I guess you're D now.
Okay, it's the motion to accept the 2020 annual status report worksheet for Colerain Township Kroger TIF.
I'll motion to accept the 2021-2022 annual sales report worksheet for Kroger TIF.
I will second it.
Have discussion?
Discussion.
No discussion
Nope,
from me.
none.
Okay, so we'll do roll call. We got Mr. Greg Jarvis,
Yes.
Kathy Ulrich, yes, Dan Unger,
Yes?
Matt Waller.
Yes.
And Amy Wells.
Yes.
So that's, passes 5-0.
Okay, next we have the motion to accept the 2020 annual status report worksheet for the Duke TIF.
So I'll motion to accept the 2021 and 2022 annual status reports for the Duke TIF.
I will second it.
Okay, roll call would be Mr. Greg Jarvis,
Yes.
Kathy Ulrich, yes, Dan Unger,
Yes?
Matt Waller,
Yes.
Amy Wells.
Yes.
So that passes with a 5-0.
Next, we have the motion to accept the 2020 annual status report worksheet for the Northridge Crossing TIF.
I'll motion to accept the 2021-2022 annual sales report for the Northridge Crossing TIF.
I will second it.
Okay, any discussion?
None from me.
Okay, then roll call would be Greg Jarvis,
Yes.
Kathy Ulrich, yes, Dan Unger,
Yes?
Matt Waller,
Yes.
and Amy Wells.
Yes.
Okay,
Next, we have the motion to accept the 2020 Community Reinvestment Agreement.
okay.
What year was that, Greg?
2021 and 2022.
Yeah,
I motion that we accept the 2021-2022 Community Reinvestment Agreement.
So just a point of information, I believe that has been removed from the original agenda. The CRAs are only approved at, I believe, the county level, right?
Yeah, I believe that is true.
Yes.
yeah, that's what I thought.
So do we need to amend the agenda to remove that, or is it?
It's not on.
It's not on the updated agenda?
No, it's not. It was just called for adjournment.
Okay, very good. Okay. Yeah, well, and that will be approved at the county level.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So at this point, I'd like to motion for adjournment.
I will second it.
Okay, roll call. Mr. Jarvis,
Yes.
Kathy Ulrich, yes, Dan Unger,
Yes?
Matt Waller,
Yes.
Amy Wells.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 5-0, as we are adjourned at 5:40.
Thank you.
Okay, it is 6 o'clock. It is time for the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for April 25th. And we need a roll call, Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here?
Mr. Waller?
Here.
And Mr. Wetbach, do we need executive session today?
Yes, I would request a motion from the board to go into an executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G3, to discuss pending or imminent litigation, in accordance with G2, to consider the purchase or sale of property for public purchases, and with G4 to discuss collective bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation.
I motion that we go into executive sessions for the reasons detailed by Administrator Weckbach.
I'll second that.
No discussion?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes?
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to adjourn at 6 o'clock and be back at 7. Officially 7 o'clock, we're going to start the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, April 25th, 23. We're going to go for roll call
Ms. Orich?
here.
Mr. Unger?
Here?
Mr. Waller?
Here.
Okay, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Anything to report?
Oh, sorry, first, anything to report from executive sessions?
Nothing to report.
Sorry, now we can stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In one of the last statistics that came out this week, that over 100,000 people are now dying from the fentanyl overdose. Let's pray for those families that are affected by this and all of our EMS services that are responding to all this great need that's out there. Thank you. Okay, numbers 5, approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Board. Would ask for approval of the minutes of the regular Board of Trustees meeting from April 11th, 2023.
I motion that we approve the minutes from the April 11th, 2023 trustee meeting.
I'll second that.
Any discussions?
Yes, Jeff, I sent you 2 edits for that. Did you incorporate those into the minutes?
Yes.
No other comments from me.
Not?
No.
Okay.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes?
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, time for our presentations. First by Chief Walls.
Good evening to the board, to the families, and everyone in attendance this evening, and those watching virtually. Tonight, we have 2 swearing-ins to do, and I would like Lieutenant Steve May to please come forward, please. Lieutenant May went through the Colerain recruit program in 2006. He was hired part-time in 2007 and became a paramedic in 2009. Across his career, he's also worked part-time for Ross Township, Morgan Township, and Harrison. He was hired full-time in 2017. He attended the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association Fire Officer 1 program, in addition to John Maxwell 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership program. He was approved for promotion at the April 11th, 2023 Board of Trustees meeting. And at this time, I would like you to introduce your family.
My wife, Jessica May, will be pinning me, and my son, Rylan, will be standing alongside us.
Repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of Ohio. I'll abide by the Colerain Fire and EMS mission statement, values, code of ethics, standard operating guidelines, and the Township's policies and procedures. And I'll faithfully discharge the duties of lieutenant in and for Colerain Township, Hamilton County, State of Ohio, to the best of my ability. So help me God.
That's it. Thank you and congratulations for becoming a part of our Colerain team.
Next, I'd like Samuel Greenlee to come forward, please. Firefighter EMT Samuel Greenlee went through the Colerain Recruit Program in 2022. He was hired part-time in 2022, was approved for full-time at the Board of Trustees meeting on March the 14th, 2023. And he's going to be penned tonight by his father, Andrew Greenlee, a former Colerain firefighter and EMT who went through recruit class when I was a division chief of training and spent 12 years here with us. Would you please introduce your family?
I have my father, my mother, my sister Kate, and Sarah. My sister Paige couldn't make it today. My girlfriend Emily, her dad, his girlfriend. My best friend Lewis, her sister, his mother and father.
All right. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Sam Greenlee, do solemnly swear that I'll uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of Ohio. I'll abide by the Colerain Fire and EMS mission statement, values, code of ethics, standard operating guidelines, and the Township's policies and procedures. I'll faithfully discharge the duties of firefighter EMT in and for Colerain Township, Hamilton County, State of Ohio, to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations.
And that concludes my presentations. Thank you.
Thank you both.
And congratulations to both families. What a great day for you all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your service and continued service.
Okay, next we have the proclamation.
Yes, so the next item on the agenda is a proclamation recognizing Larry Shadd for all of his contributions to our community. If one of you all would like to read that into the record. And
I'd like to move that that Mr. Unger read the proclamation into the record.
I'll second.
I will second that, and I will start off by saying Larry was a heck of a guy. Proclamation for Lawrence Larry Edwin Shadd for his years of dedicated service to Colerain Township, Ohio. Whereas Larry Shadd became a charter member of the Dunlap Volunteer Fire Department in 1955, he continued serving in many capacities for the next 30 years, including the merger into the Colerain Township Fire Department. And Larry Shadd served Colerain Township in countless ways, including chair of the Hamilton County Rural Zoning Commission, chair of the Colerain Land Use Committee, chair of the first Colerain Township Zoning Commission, co-chair of the Colerain Incorporation Committee, and whereas Larry Shadd finally devoted his leadership and service to the Colerain Historical Society, writing many articles and spearheading many projects. Larry and his wife were actively engaged in the founding of Colerain's Heritage Park, and Larry was finally recognized as the unofficial park ambassador. Larry also restored and relocated the Blue Rock Banning Toll House, which also served as the Creedville Post Office. He researched the location of Dunlap Station, which is Fort Colerain, as well as constructed the historic flood monument, both of which are located at Heritage Park. Whereas Larry Shadd's endless enthusiasm, commitment, and pride in serving Colerain Township and its residents will be sorely missed. Larry was truly a pillar of our township. Therefore, be it resolved that the Colerain Township Board of Trustees recognizes Larry Shadd for his lifelong commitment to his family, his friends, and Colerain Township. Be it further resolved that in recognition of all that Larry Shadd has done for Colerain Township, the Colerain Township Board of Trustees hereby proclaim Tuesday, April 25th, 2023, as a special day of recognition for Larry Shadd to acknowledge his contributions to our community. And Larry was a super fella, and I got to know him over the years, and he was really, really something. So I would motion that we approve this proclamation.
I'll second. Or you can do it.
Good, go ahead.
And I've made my comments, and
I mean, just the contribution that Larry made to the community is just incredible, and I don't know that there are really words to really illustrate that contribution.
Right. I wanted Chris Henson to speak, but I don't see her in the audience, but.
So, and just to share some of the hard work that this man put into our community, when it came to figuring out how high the flood actually hit for the flood pool, he had to do a ton of research, and that included things, looking at newspaper articles and what have you. But I believe he actually had to go around and look at barns to see how high up on the barn the actual watermarks were left from the flood when it happened. So, I mean, he was willing to turn over any stone that he could in order to figure out and get an answer, and he's going to be deeply missed by our community. So
Was that the 52 flood?
it was, I can't remember which flood it was, yes. And I think we might have members of the family here if they wanted to say anything as well.
Yeah.
so it's nice to see you.
And Board of Commissioners. I did bring just a little thing. Thank you to President Ulrich and board members Unger and Wallert. Thank you for honoring our father this evening. It was only a year and a half ago that this board dedicated Larry Shadd Day on his 89th birthday to a packed house and to family and community members. It was always his pleasure to serve those within the community, and he was more than proud to call Colerain home. Dad reflected the true meaning of a public servant, never one to shrug off a request, never one to shy from a difficult challenge, and never asking for an attaboy. He typically didn't ask to lead, but led by all the same by example, always giving his time, talent in support of the common good. I remember from a young age, my dad and mom would challenge my sister and I, "What good will you do in the world today?" It was a spirit instilled in both of us, and we are forever grateful. I believe the lesson Dad's life offers us is that it's important to always have purpose in one's life. His sound physical and mental health for 90 and a half years was based on his disciplined and ethical life, physical activity, his work and professionalism, and his belief of giving back at times in quantities more than he should have. We will always respect him for these traits. Though we are saddened by his loss and that his passing regretfully serves as the final story for the charter members of the Dunlap Volunteer Fire Department and as the last Cincinnatian from the class of 1950 of Mount Healthy High School, our family will fondly recount the numerous ways Dad's impacts still surround us. The many homes our neighbors and friends reside in, the local businesses that grew and prospered, and the pride he had building our fire department, our city, and most notably, the many contributions from the Historical Society and particularly Heritage Park. Its opening was a respite for my mom in her final days, and its enhancement often my father's calling for the 16 years since she passed. And I wouldn't be my father's son if I didn't put a plug in for the Colerain Historical Society, because he always would. On behalf of Chris Henson. The Society has graciously co-established the Shadd Family Colerain Heritage Fund, which our family hopes will continue to provide meaningful improvements to Heritage Park and the works of the Historical Society. And your contributions are always greatly welcome and generously appreciated. And I should remind you that on May 20th at noon, with multiple dedications at the park, most notably the honoring of members of the society that have passed in the last year. And to your administration, who my dad fondly bugged many times, don't be surprised if I take up with the mantle of nudging for some more great ideas that work to preserve and enhance this community that my family has called home since as far back as 1936. Thank you.
Beautiful words. Thank you for sharing that.
Did we vote on that? Okay.
Oh, we have to vote.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, number C.
And there'll be a copy of that up here
Yeah.
for you that I think Matt is signing.
It's with Mr. Baker now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so next up on the agenda is a presentation by members of the Colerain High School and Butler Tech FCCLA. I believe Assistant Chief Will Mueller is here to present, and I know our projector tends to time out on us from time to time, so I'm trying to get that back up for when you guys give your presentation.
Good. Well, I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to tee up this next presentation. As you know, quite often, so many great things are happening in our community in which they produce extraordinary results. Unfortunately, we don't always get to hear about them, right? And every once in a while, though, albeit not enough, we get to highlight those extraordinary results like we're going to do tonight. So I had the pleasure of meeting two Colerain High School Butler Tech students who achieved such results while evaluating their presentation at a regional FCCLA event. Now, FCCLA is the acronym for Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America. FCCLA offers students the opportunity to expand their leadership potential, develop skills for life like planning, goal setting, problem solving, decision making, and developing interpersonal communication skills, which, as you know, are necessary in the home, in the workplace, and in the community. We're blessed to have an FCCLA chapter right here in our own school district. So during their presentation, they demonstrated their ability to identify social service gaps and community needs while bringing important resources directly to individuals living amongst an underserved population. Furthermore, in that presentation, they provided an overview of their unique partnership development that assisted them in taking on this important service project. I was very impressed by their work, and I know all of you will be as well. So I'd like to introduce first Monica Lewis, who serves as the Colerain High School Butler Tech's FCCLA advisor, who will talk a little more about FCCLA and introduce the two girls. Monica?
In addition to being an FCCLA advisor, I'm also a family and consumer science teacher and have had one of the girls in class, and then our other teacher there had the other young lady. With the classes, we get the opportunity to introduce the students to FCCLA and to develop some of those skills that were mentioned earlier that are soft skills, but are so beneficial to employers and in families. The two ladies that will be presenting happen to be our co-presidents, both last year and this year. Before they present, I would like to fill in a little bit more about FCCLA. So there are almost 200,000 members nationwide, but our chapter is a little small. We only have 14 members, but we have 14 very active members, and they're able to accomplish a lot. We have been able to do some big things. In addition to what you will see in the project that the ladies will present, we also were able to partner with two other clubs this year at Colerain and bring in a national speaker to talk with our juniors and seniors about the importance of driving safely and making good decisions on the road. We've also been able to help one of our elementary PTAs with several of their events. We look for opportunities to provide fun activities for our students, for our members, but we also look for activities that will help to build their leadership skills and help them to serve in the community. So with that, I would like to introduce Stephanie Feely and Ariana Stubblefield. They'll present their project to you just as they will present it to the state judges this coming Thursday. And so we've asked if you have any questions to just hold them till the end, and they'll be happy to answer anything for you then. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
Got your Colerain cards colors on, yes.
There also happen to be the FCCLA colors, which
Oh,
happens to work out.
That's that color.
Next slide, please. Hello, my name is Ariana Stubblefield.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Feely. Before deciding to help at Bethany House, we explored 3 different service project ideas. One was to work with a local elementary school for a literacy project. We talked about this project after the national competition and into the school year. We noticed that the year before we had an increased number of teacher in-service days. When talking to our advisor about it, she told us that the reading scores, especially at the elementary level, were low. So we were wondering how we could improve the scores. We thought it'd be a nice project if we could help and work with one of our elementary schools and see if the scores will go up. We spent a lot of time communicating with the elementary school teacher, but came to the conclusion that the proposed literacy project was more than our small chapter could meet the needs for. So even though we invested a lot of our time, we decided to go back to our members to choose a different service project. Other projects our chapter had discussed were to work with a local animal shelter or homeless shelter.
Next slide, please. The animal shelter idea came from a small project that we done in the past that we wanted to expand on. The homeless shelter idea came from the We Help Too sock campaign that we heard about last year at Nationals and again at the fall leadership training. Hearing about the donations that the We Help Too sale makes to homeless shelters had us leaning in this direction. However, we wanted to get our members involved. So we sent out a Google form. It was a close decision between the two. However, the majority chose the homeless shelter.
After making this decision, we looked more into how homelessness affects our nation and city. In December of 2022, HUD calculated that 582,462 people were experiencing homelessness in the United States and its territories. At a more local level, we found that 11,367 people in Cincinnati, including 1,881 children, were homeless.
There are several homeless shelters in the greater Cincinnati area that we could have selected. We chose Bethany House because our club is all females, and we felt it would be more appropriate to work with homeless families than homeless shelter just for men.
According to their website, Bethany House mission is to empower homeless and at-risk families with a solution to achieve housing stability and long-term self-sufficiency. When talking to Danielle, who is the Chief Development Officer at Bethany House, to find out how we could help, he told us that the families look forward to when groups come in to prepare meals. We like the idea of serving dinner to the residents. We hope the rest of our members will like this idea as well.
Next slide, please. After reading the information on the website and communicating with Daniel, we set the following goals for this project. Provide 2 meals to Bethany House residents by the end of January 2023. Host 1 fun activity for children staying at Bethany House by the end of February 2023. Donate 4 Bethany Basic general household cleaning items for families to receive when moving out. Make basket donation by the end of February 2023. Donate 20 pairs of socks to Bethany House through the We Help Too campaign by the end of March 2023. We realized we would need to dedicate a decent amount of chapter funds to make this project a success. Next slide, please. We used a few different fundraisers to get the funds we needed. We sold Buskin smiley face cookies to cover the cost of the meals and craft night. We sold donuts after school on 5 different Wednesdays to cover the cost of the general cleaning baskets. And we count on the We Help Too campaign to take care of the sock donation.
Additionally, we sought out donations from some of our local businesses to help covering the cost of the meals. We asked our local Sam's Club, Gordon Food Services, GFS, Cord Foods, and the Barnesburg Tavern and Grill restaurant to help us with this event through donations. Our club is small, so we also asked our student senate members to help with the appropriation days.
Like Stephanie mentioned, we partner with many incredible groups to provide the 2 meals. Our local Sam's Club donated a $200 gift card, which we used to buy food, drinks, and paper goods that we could use for both meals. GFS donated taco meat and cheese for our first meal night, which was walking tacos. GFS then donated pancake mix for our second meal night, which was breakfast. Then our local Olive Garden donated silverware for both of the meals. We also had our Colerain baking and pastry class donate the brownies that they made in class for the walking taco night.
Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We served our first meal on December 8th. We used skills we learned in our cooking class to safely prepare the meals. Our menu included walking tacos, fruit salad, brownies, and drinks. The day before we met to cut the fruit for the fruit salad and cook the taco meat. When at Bethany House, we set up the food, served, cleaned up, and ate with the residents. This meal was such a hit and everyone loved them.
Next slide, please. Our second meal night was January 19th. This time, our menu included pancakes with syrup, turkey sausage patties, pork sausage links, fruit, yogurt parfaits, and drinks. The day before we met, we pre-made the pancakes and cooked the meats. We did this so when we got to Bethany House, all we needed to do was portion out the syrup and portion out the yogurt for the parfaits. The crowd was a little smaller than expected. We were wondering why. The kitchen staff told us that fish was accidentally put on the menu instead of us. So some of the residents may have gone elsewhere for dinner. However, the residents that did stay were happy fish wasn't on the menu, and the kids were extra excited to see the pancakes.
Some of my favorite memories from serving meals at Bethany House are talking to the residents and seeing the joy on their faces. So when we came back the second time, it felt really nice that they recognized us from the small thing we have done in the previous month.
Next slide, please. We love serving the meals so much that we were looking forward to working with the kids at the craft activity. We decided to do our craft night on February 9th, and to make it Valentine's Day themed, we set up a photo booth for the kids to take pictures. We had props for the kids to use when getting their pictures taken. We were allowed to take their pictures because we use an instant camera. So this way we did not take nor publish their picture anywhere else, but the kids could still have their picture and put in a cute Valentine's Day frame.
Since we're expecting a large crowd of kids, we wanted 2 craft stations for them to move between. Our second craft was a printed picture of a heart that said, "I love you" to pieces. The kids could then pieces of colorful ripped paper into the heart.
Next slide, please. After we had everything ready for the craft night, we only had a couple of goals left to act on, one of which was donating 4 general cleaning baskets using the donut sale money. These are baskets that are given to residents when they are leaving the homeless shelter to help set them up for success.
Before purchasing the items for the baskets, our advisor received a call from Maribel, the social director at Bethany House. She had a new concern and said that she had been so impressed with what our club has done so far that she was hoping that our club might be able to help with this too. They realized that if the kids didn't like the meal that was served, they didn't eat anything. Then they would be hungry at the activity time after dinner or before going to bed. Our advisor shared this information with us, and we decided to donate individually packaged snacks that wouldn't need refrigerated or cooked. So instead of donating 4 baskets, we donated 2 baskets and several boxes of snacks.
Next slide, please. Lastly, we set a goal to donate 20 pairs of socks through the We Help Too sale. Through our fundraiser, we were able to donate 45 pairs of socks.
Bethany House has been very appreciative of all the things we have done over the last few months. So much that they took our picture to put in their newsletter. We do not have this newsletter yet due to the fact that it's quarterly. However, they did send us an email saying how much they appreciated us and all the hard work we have done. Next slide, please.
We wanted to bring attention to the service project that we did, so we addressed our local school board. In addition to telling our school board members what our FCCLA chapter had been doing, we were also able to make more people aware of the number of homeless families in the Cincinnati area. We hope that we inspire adults of the school board, central office personnel, and community members that attended the meeting in person and online to also volunteer or to help homeless in a tangible way.
We already started to discussing ideas on how we can continue to improve and be a chapter that provides incredible service to our community. We like our chapter to continue to work with Bethany House in some way. At a recent meeting, we discussed the options and decided on serving dinner once a year.
Working at Bethany House, we took a lot of things away from that we'll keep forever. When at Bethany House, we could really see the joy on people's faces. It really showed us that a little goes a long way. Just being there once a month for a few hours really made an impact on the families there.
Both of us are inspired to continue helping out homeless through our college and adult life.
Next slide, please. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your schedule to help FCCLA be incredible.
You two are amazing.
I think that one of the unrealized benefits that probably didn't occur to you is for the folks down there to see what you young people are capable of doing and give them some inspiration to maybe, improve their lives and see how successful you are. What a marvelous presentation, and you're both great diplomats for your organization.
Thank you.
And so innovative and thoughtful. I just love the idea of your cookie sales and your donut sales and the socks. My mother did a lot of work, and one of the things she taught for underprivileged children, and a lot of her kids did not come to school with socks and underwear. So people do not realize how important socks and underwear are to younger children because the families can't afford that and they can go on their lives without it. So that really hit home too. So that was really an awesome idea.
Stephanie and Ariana, is that right? Yes. Thank you so much and congratulations. And, it's not lost on me that we started the evening recognizing Mr. Shad, who served the community throughout his whole life, and you guys are just getting started. So I encourage you to keep that up, and you know, the rewards and helping can never be counted. I've always gone under the philosophy that we've been given a lot, and to whom's giving a lot is owed to society, and I'm glad that you've, I wish I would have recognized it as early as you guys did. So congratulations on the great work, and thank you so much.
We need more of you in this world.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I know usually folks leave the room after some of the presentations. This might be a good time for that if there was anybody who was
But
not
we'd like you
wishing
to
hang.
stay.
If you would like to stay, we will gladly have you stay.
Thank you all families for coming out.
Wait. Hey, Matt.
It's on right now, actually.
That's all I knew. I don't even know how to say those words. It's not on the next agenda item.
I made that connection between yours.
Awesome. I was just thinking all my mom's work at the Bethany House too. I was like, oh my gosh.
Is Bethany House down off of?
That I do not know, but I just know she was a teacher and they did a lot of stuff through Bethany House.
Bethany House is off of Colerain, or it goes all the way down through. Yeah. It's in Fairmount.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you said Old Colerain, I said, you mean, Old Colerain's where, yeah.
All right. Well, I think next up on the agenda is the presentation of the 2022 year-end financials from Assistant Administrator Jeff McElravy.
Good evening.
Please turn the mic on, I've been told.
Maybe if I just bring it down.
There you
to,
go.
You know, insert short.
I don't, I'm just
here.
repeating what I hear.
So, at the end of February, beginning of March, the finance team wrapped up the year-end close process, which is a multi-month effort to close the books and make all the necessary financial reporting to the state auditor. So I'd like to take a moment to thank the team for their great work over that time frame, and take a few moments to share with you where we came out at the end of 2022. This information is available on the Township website in the transparency portal. It's colerain.org is the URL. So we're going to take a moment to go through budgets to actual for the Township overall and for each of the major funds, and then take a moment to look at the cash balances for each of those funds, and then of course be happy to try to answer any questions that you may have. If we could, so Jeff's going to be navigating here. So if we could start out with the revenue side, we had total revenues of just over $56 million for the year, and that is a significant increase over prior years, and that is largely the result of the bond issuance, which closed right at the end of 2022 for the two fire stations. In terms of the top receipts for the year, property tax is by far our largest source of revenue. That is right around $22 million. We received the second portion of the American Rescue Plan grant funds, and that is a little under $3.8 million. There's something that we receive from the state called a property tax rollback, when the total of that is a little over $2 million. And then after that, it's some quarterly payments from the Rumpke for their consent decree settlement, and also an equipment lease that we need to receipt as a result of the police cruiser replacement program. So that next column, or that next graphic, shows where we are on the expense side, and you'll see that we came in under budget by about $5 million, thank you. And a large part of that is because we try to manage prudently, conservatively in terms of our expenses. We assume that we are fully staffed all year long, and of course, we are a service organization, so our largest expenses are by far the salaries and the benefits that go with those salaries. And since we were not fully staffed for all of the year, that results in some of the reduction in, or some of those savings. Taking a look at the public safety, if you could scroll down there. Actually, if you don't mind, if you could go back to the...
My cursor here.
There we go, and scroll down from there. There we go, okay. And then this will roll through each of the funds. So, for the general fund, the budget to actual came in slightly under budget. We were budgeted to be at $6 million for the general fund. We came in at 4.5, so actually more than slightly. So that led to an increase in the fund balance for the general fund. So that is all good news. Moving on to the fire fund. The budget was for $16.7 million. We came in at 13.8, so again below budget, and that it resulted in an increase in the fund balance for the fire fund of $2.9 million. The bond sale funds are accounted for elsewhere, and that's why you don't see that in the fire fund. Moving on to police. This is a slightly different story, and we've been talking for quite some time over the last couple of budget cycles about the fund balance for the police fund. We have been spending down that fund balance as we are several years beyond the time frame that the last property tax levy was designed to run. So we had $9.6 million in expenses on revenue of $8.9 million, which resulted in a reduction in the fund balance for the police fund. It's a similar situation in the road fund, but for a different reason. The township has been sitting on a pretty significant fund balance in the road fund, and at the same time we have tremendous need to repair a lot of our roads. There's deferred maintenance that goes back quite some ways, and this board made the wise decision to put those dollars to work and get more lane miles fixed. So that resulted in a reduction of fund balance because our expenses were just over $3.5 million on revenue of just under 2.8. So I think it probably is most useful to take a look at, the fund balances by fund. So as you can see for the general fund, we are continuing to do well in terms of maintaining fund balance there. Fire district is doing exactly what's supposed to happen with a levy like this. When the voters approved a levy for us 2 years ago now, and so we are building up fund balance, and then that will start to come down again in the out years because a levy only raises a certain amount of money. It does not fluctuate based on property tax valuation, common misconception, but it's set to raise a specific amount of money. And the millage is adjusted over time as valuations change to make sure that we raise the same amount of money. For the police district, as you can see, the fund balance is projected to go negative in 2020. Which year is that, Jeff? I can't quite see.
Next year.
Next year, okay, great. And then continuing on, the fund balance in the roads fund looks really good. That is continuing to build up as a result of an increase in the permissive motor vehicle license fee from a couple of years ago. And the fund balance for our TIFs is finally starting to get some traction. We have several that have been established for some time now, but a few more that we just started collecting on this year, and many more to come in the future. In terms of our capital spend, so this captures the actual spend, not the anticipated spend for what happened in 2022. The majority of this is for public safety items. In terms of debt service, this captures the last payment that we made on the general obligation debt from 2018, I believe it was. And let's see here. And then finally, we earned $421,000 in interest earnings off of our pooled balances that sit in each of our respective funds. So, big picture, overall, things look really good. Our budgeting is sound, it's conservative, it is, we are consistently able to collect more than we are spending. There is definitely a challenge that we're going to need to address in the police fund, but overall, the financial picture for the township is sound.
Thank you for all your work and your team's work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. On your road balance, at that point, several slides back, when we transferred $2 million into that so we could do the 23 and 24 road program, and I saw $3.5 million. Did that $3.5 million include that $2 million that we transferred?
I believe that is going to flow through with, it may show up here. I can't remember if it's going to flow through now or at next year's update when we're building out the 24 budget.
Yeah, I'd have to think we did that in 22.
Yeah, year end 22, I think, is when we budgeted that for 23.
Oh, because we're spending it this year.
That's right.
Okay. Well, that's, yeah, I was looking at that one number, and that's what I was thinking about, but that explains it. Thank you. No other questions from me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Yep. Next up is citizen address.
We have Lori McMullen. You look a little cleaner today.
Good evening. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
So first off, just a couple of thank yous. Hello. All right, so just a couple of thank yous. First, Greater Northbrook had our first community meeting of the year on April 3rd. Just want to say that we appreciate everyone for coming out and supporting us. A special thank you to our speakers. We had quite a few that night. So Assistant Fire Chief Will Mueller, along with Jamie Penley and Rachel Akra from Hamilton County, speaking about the QRT program. Jeff Weckbach and Tiffany Mays from the PD. Again, we had Jamie Penley and Henry Boyd. Fire updates with Chief Alan Walls. Northwest Local School District came to speak, Daryl Yater and Treasurer Amy Wells. At the state level, we had Senator Bill Blessing and State Rep Cindy Abrams. And then just publicly again, as we always do, thank you to Jim Love for allowing us to take over his gymnasium and host our meetings there. So I'm gonna skip the next thank you until the end. But just an update on the pollinator garden. As everyone's aware, on Amarillo, you guys own 5 lots and you allow us to keep it pollinated, as our mural says. Last year we had a planting event. We planted 77 plants. Most of those are turning green right now. Some are not, but for a particular reason. Back in February, we hosted a planting event. Next month, we will have hundreds of Ohio native plants that we've been germinating and growing that we're going to install. We've been putting down the cardboard and mulching, and tomorrow we will be there again, mulching. Again, getting dirty. We're crawling all over the ground, but it's just turning out to be a very beautiful and great addition to our community. So just wanted to talk about that for a second. Pickleball event. So we're being kind of ambitious and hosting a Colerain Kids Pickleball event on June 3rd. We are looking for sponsors because it does no good to teach kids the rules of the game and how to play it and then send them home with nothing. So we are trying to raise funds to send every kid home with a pickleball set. So if you're interested in being involved or would like to be a sponsor, sponsor us, please. So last but not least, speaking of being dirty, is our favorite day of the year, believe it or not. I call it dumpster day. Laura Dakin would smack me on the back of my head. It is actually cleanup day. But just some thank yous there. So thank you to Mr. Cosuro from the Northbrook Shopping Center for letting us invade his property once a year. Rumpke, and especially Dean Ferrier. If you guys know Dean, you know why I'm thanking him. A couple years ago on Team Up to Green Up, we became friends with Junk King, and they are a fantastic addition. They just did their second year with us, and they say that they'll take TVs, but that's a lie. They take everything, so as long as it's not Freon, they're going to take it for us. Compton Recycling, 6 year that they have been a sponsor. Colerain Chamber of Commerce, of course, Colerain Administration, the Colerain Police Department, including the environmental crime, can't beat Henry Boyd. Our Colerain Fire Department, Side by Side came out and sponsored our breakfast. Angela's Pizza, even though they were closed and at a funeral that day, still refused to not sponsor our event and feed all the volunteers. So before a funeral, they came out with pizzas. Make sure you support their business. And for those who don't know, 20 seconds. Those who don't know, this was a Greater Groesbeck's first cleanup day, so congratulations to them. And then last but not least, I thought I'd give some metrics today of what a group of volunteers can accomplish when you work together for the greater good.
Do you like another minute?
Please.
Okay.
I motion that we give her 2 more minutes.
All right, second that.
Thank you. So, year 1 was 2018. This was year 6. In the past 6 years, we have 31 filled dumpsters under our belt. For the past 3 years, we have worked with Rumpke and had a tire dumpster. We have collected 783 tires and kept them off of our streets. We have recycled over 10,000 pounds of metal and 4 pounds of trash. And this is a low estimate because, sorry, Rumpke, we kind of overfill their dumpsters beyond what we're supposed to. On a low end, we have collected 160,000 pounds of trash, which equals 80 tons. So just wanted to give you those little numbers of what volunteers can do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Kathy Moore.
Good evening.
Good evening. At the past 2 meetings, I had a couple of questions, and I wondered if you had answers for them. One of them, I said that Plattenberg, you had approved $5,700 in 2022 for Plattenberg, and we received no invoices and no payments were made. And then earlier this year, you approved another $1,000 to $3,000. And I was wondering, what are they doing for us? And I also asked, in one of the policies on health insurance, it said that spouses of part-time employees are not eligible for health benefits. And I just wondered who or what part-time employees are eligible for health insurance. I'm a little disappointed, but I had looked over the lighting assessment fund, and I sent a request for some information, and I asked Why is the lighting assessment being used to pay salaries? I thought this fund was for paying electric bills for the lighting districts. If you are not required to answer this question, please forward to the appropriate department head. I'd appreciate it if you would let me know who I could expect an answer from. So I had also asked that for the people who had been paid out of the lighting assessment fund, and I got this, which is completely full. I think it has every single employee we have on here, and I don't understand why they would be paid out of lighting assessments. I wanted to know why the lighting assessments contain the appropriations, salaries, trustees, office, other salaries, Ohio Public Employee Retirement System, Medicare, workers' comp, postage, advertising, contracted services, tax collection fees, and advances out for lighting district advances. So I don't understand why we take funds from the lighting assessment fund in or out. The fund should be deposited there, and then when you get your electric bills for the lighting districts, you pay it. And like I said, there was always a payroll coming out of there each month, but I rarely saw paying due. So I just wondered, where does the lighting assessment funds get deposited? If they're transferred out somewhere, where do they get transferred to? And why do they get transferred? And then I would also like to know the same thing about the abatements for grass cutting or nuisance abatements, whatever, where that comes into and how it gets paid. And if there's any way the township has a way of reconciling the abatements because they have to submit them to the county, and then when they receive money from the county for those assessments, do they reconcile that with the amount for accountability? So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Rich McVeigh.
Good evening, sir.
This evening, I respectfully ask the board to turn down the appropriation requests for $3 million additional for the firehouses. Let me tell you why. When this project first started out, it was supposed to be about $9.6 million, and then you bonded $12 million. That was like a 25% increase, and now you're asked to increase by another 25%. Now this project is going to add about 30,000 square feet of firehouse space. That's 3 times the space that you have currently in Station 26 and Station 107. Now I know 26 is a little bit crowded, but 3 times the space that the current people have seems to be a bit much based on what seems practical. I would also say we're about to head into a recession, and things are not going to get better. Some people here talked about what they've done in FCCLA, helping people in need. I yesterday helped a family get fed because they didn't have enough money to do that. These are the people you're taxing. So you're about to fund, if you do this, and I hope you don't, 2 fire stations that are 3 times larger than what we currently have that they're replacing. Additionally, the project manager notes that that person does not envision costs to decrease at any point in the near future. What
What he's telling you is he doesn't know how much it's going to cost. That's what that means. He says to you, he does not envision cost to decrease at any point in the near future. That's hedging his bet. So you don't know that you can get this thing built for $15 million. And remember, it started out at 9.6, and it's 3 times the space that you currently have in Station 107 and 26. Now, I know they're crowded, but they aren't, not 3 times. I think you need to start pushing back on the fire department for asking for these things. Fire trucks, when you see them out there, 3% of the time they're running to fires. Most of the time, they're supporting EMS work. So I'm not pushing back on EMS, I'm pushing back on the money that you're spending for our firehouses, which doesn't seem like it's merited. So I'm asking you just to say no. No. Build what you want for $12 million or less. That's what you do in the real world. That's what homeowners have to do today. And that's what taxpayers have to do. The people who are paying for this, okay, many of them are on fixed incomes. Now, whether it's a bond or whether it's an upcoming levy, they're going to be hard pressed by the decisions you guys are making. Now, all 3 of you guys ran as conservatives, and you're not acting like conservatives. What you said to get elected is not what you're doing as you sit up there. This is not conservative management. Just say no. It won't be hard. The fire department's got capable people. They can bring something in for $12 million, and it will do what they need to do for the people in the township. Moving on, there's a resolution tonight adopting amended appropriations for a litany of things. I won't go into that. The question I have is, why do you have that happening? Why are we having these last-minute changes coming in? We're supposed to have a long-range strategic plan where all these things are well known to everybody. Why is the finance department not getting the facts to us fast enough? It doesn't seem like it's right. The last thing I will say is we have an election coming up for the school board. It's on May 5th. They're going to ask the voters to approve a 38-year levy. It's going to withdraw $400 million from the township over the next 38 years to fund new facilities. The data is that our school district has bigger problems than new schools. They can't hire bus drivers, they can't keep teachers, and their academic scores are in the bottom 10% of the state. They too are trying to press against a population that doesn't have the funds. So I urge the residents to vote no on that, and I urge the trustees to stand to your commitment and vote this $300,000 appropriation down. Thank you.
Mr. McVeigh, I think that's May 1st. May 1st? Yeah, May 5th is a Friday, or I'm sorry, May 2nd. May 5th is a Friday. Yeah.
Is there anybody else that, or is any other out there? Okay. So we're good.
All right, and next up on the agenda, trustees, is administrative reports. I believe the only report is one that I have. These are answers to some of the questions raised at the last meeting. So one of the questions there had to deal with our OpenGov budgeting, permitting, and code enforcement software and how that differs from UAN. So UAN provides the sort of receipt book, so it provides that aspect of our functionality. It does not provide any of the budgeting functionality that we have. It also does not have any of the external reporting. So a lot of those reports that we provided before are created that way. It also does not have the capability to handle code enforcement requests, as well as what is being worked on right now, which is going to be rolled out later in the year, which are going to be our road requests and stormwater requests. So those are a lot of the public pieces that it does. It also handles all of our or zoning permits, I should say, at this point. So those are all able to be done online, which is a huge benefit to our residents as well as our businesses. I think we've seen lately the numbers where over half of all of our zoning certificates are being done online and not in person. So that's been a huge savings for folks to be able to do that at their convenience at home. So there's a lot of different pieces to the OpenGov software. It's not simply just an accounting system, and in fact, it doesn't do any of the accounting functionality that UAN does. The other question that is worth mentioning did deal with the spousal coverage for part-timers. So I think we've mentioned this in the past, but part-time employees currently are not eligible for health care. Now, under the Affordable Care Act, if an employee were to work more than 30 hours per week on average over the course of a year, they would be then required to be offered health care. So in the off chance that an employee does hit those parameters, it is worthwhile for us to have this policy in place that identifies that they would not be eligible to have their spouse on our plan. So really, this is a safeguard, it's a protection. We do not have any part-time employees on health care. But in the off chance that one of them would work those requirements and then be eligible per federal law, we then have that safeguard in place. Finally, unrelated to questions from the prior meeting, I did want to give a shout out to all of the community events that were going on this past weekend. So I know the Northbrook Cleanup Day was a fantastic time. There was a lot of stuff that got picked up off the side of the roads. A lot of folks were able to do some spring cleaning and clean out their homes. But then beyond that, there was a church that actually cleaned up the old Aldi's parking lot. They brought the trash to the Northbrook site. It was not the most pleasant smelling trash when it was dropped off, but they brought off an entire truckload of bags of garbage. That was really neat to see. And then you had Side by Side Ministries had actually coordinated 2 additional cleanups, one at Colerain Park, where there were a lot of weeds pulled, a lot of shelters got painted, and then at the Clippard YMCA, there was a ton of work that was done to beautify their property. So that was really neat to see. And then finally, as a teaser, we met with some folks from the Port Authority this morning, and they mentioned that they're going to be rolling out a program likely in the next couple of months for residents in targeted neighborhoods to be eligible to receive a grant from the port to do facade and exterior improvements to their homes. So when that comes out, we'll be sure to share that throughout the community. I believe that they're looking at specific areas that have been targeted by things like out-of-town landlords and areas like that in order to encourage those folks that have been around that we're here to support them. So be on the lookout for that as it rolls out. I don't know the details just yet. And that is my administrative report.
Okay, trustee reports. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I'll go. Is that?
Go ahead, Matt.
Okay. Just a couple things, and then a bigger thing. So Mr. McVeigh brought it up again. It's Tuesday, May 2nd. Vote. Go out and vote. The frustrating thing is when you have a vote in May, whatever the issue is gets decided by about 12 or 13%, probably 20% of the voting eligible people, which works out to be 8 or 9% of the people in that community. So whatever your political stance or whatever your stance on the issues are, please go out and vote. I had several long discussions with a resident here. I know that Lieutenant Penley did, and Chief Cordy as well, who's interested in bringing some technology through a group block watch program he has, and that there'll be more information coming up on that soon. The genesis of this was the violence that we had on Easter Sunday. And hopefully we can have something good come out of it by engaging more community members. My apologies for missing the cleanup day. I had that day a funeral. A good friend of mine, actually my mentor as a teacher, who I've known for almost 30 years, his mother died, and that was the place for me to be, but I will be there next time. I just want to mention about it's nice to see the TIF funds starting to come in. One of the things that, before I even took office, one of the things I wanted to do was unlock the value from TIF funds, and it looks like that's beginning to happen, and we're looking at $16 million total to come from TIF funds. Thanks for the Greater Northbrook for the April 3rd invitation to the meeting. And also in the past couple of weeks, I have had multiple discussions with administration and fire with regards to the new price. One thing that was mentioned in the citizen comments that we do know that this would be actually that was the first question I asked. Is this going to be a moving target? That is going to be the final price. And I wanted to spend just a couple minutes to talk about the solid waste district, because I bring that up a lot, and I don't know if people realize what that is. We have a meeting coming up May 1st, in which we're doing the solid district, the Hamilton County Solid Waste District Plan Update. And again, I'm not going to get too far into this, but in 1988, the state of Ohio decided that that we didn't have enough planning for how we're going to manage landfills. We didn't have enough regulations, and they created solid waste districts all across the state of Ohio. So if you're in a county, you need to belong to a solid waste district. In Hamilton County, it's the Hamilton County Solid Waste District, and probably 97 to 99% of our solid waste ends up right up the street at Rumpke. So it's always kind of been a tradition, really dating back to Mr. Trustee Feudal Day, that a Colerain person be on that board, simply because, we've got the skin in the game with that. As the stats have come out from the new report, the one thing that I've noted, and I don't know that people realize this, things are broken up into three tiers of waste. Tier 1 is the stuff that comes from Hamilton County. That only makes up about 43% of the Rumpke landfill. So if you think about that, more comes from out of district and out of state than inside Hamilton County. Tier 2, which is in the state of Ohio, but outside Hamilton County, is about 52%. And Tier 3 is out of the state is about 5%. Now, the Supreme Court said a long time ago you can't mess with Tier 3 as a community because that's interstate commerce. Tier 1 gets charged a tonnage amount of $1 per ton. Tier 2 gets paid $2 per ton because it's outside the county. Those funds that are raised through those tipping fees or those disposal fees are used to run the solid waste district, which include a number of recycling projects, different projects that are all designed, ironically, to reduce the landfill usage. So essentially, the money that that's made from the landfill is used to reduce the usage of the landfill. It's kind of an interesting kind of relationship. As the plan has come out, the one thing that I have pushed for, and I'm all about, protecting Colerain. Those Tier 2 fees that make up 52% of the solid waste, so that's outside the Hamilton County but inside the state of Ohio, that are at $2 per ton, that are paid by other counties. They're not paid by members of Hamilton County, residents of Hamilton County. So basically, other counties pay that $2 fee so that they could bring their trash over to Rumpke and drop it off here. Statutorily, according to the ORC, solid waste districts have the ability to raise that up to $4 per ton. And it's my position, and I'm pushing for, and it may not happen this plan update, but I'm going to continue to push for the idea that we begin to max out on those Tier 2 funds that are people outside of Hamilton County and use those funds to, the proposal I'm giving May 1st is to use those funds to go back to the local members so that they can use it for whatever they deem necessary for landfill reduction. So in the case of, I represent the townships, which is 310,000 residents and 13 townships. Colerain, I think, is a 7% of that population. Is that I want 7% of those fees to bounce back to Colerain. City of Cincinnati, I think, is 31%. I want 31% to bounce back to the city. And I'm facing a lot of opposition about it, but and I don't know if we'll get it through this time, but I'm going to continue to push it because for me, the value in this is that I would gladly trade places with other counties that have a higher tipping fee and dump my trash in their county. When this thing gets capped off, and there's some suggestions that we have about 20 years life on that landfill, the closure and the post-closure process for landfills is a complicated process. The people that gave us the $2 tipping fees are going to be long gone. They're not going to be there to help us with that. And that's the message I'm trying to send to the other members of the solid waste district on a continual basis. I don't know if that message is reaching, but I think it's absolutely fair to expect people from outside the county to increase payment for tipping fees because we have a sunk investment. It's our community. So I will continue to update that, and I will. Right now, I feel like I'm swimming upstream with it because it's interesting because people are like, well, we don't want to raise these fees. And my position is, I wish you would fight for Hamilton County residents as much as you seem to be fighting for other county residents for this, because I think that absolutely is an important issue to raise those fees for the out-of-county that are using our landfill for solid waste. So that's a little bit of the background on how that works. They come up with one of those plan updates about every 5 to 7 years. They're just wonderful reading of 300 pages of stuff about solid waste. It's a great way to spend a weekend. Not really, but you learn a lot of stuff that you never thought you'd ever learn when it comes to that, and I'm thankful to have that position. And I'm also thankful to continue to advocate for Hamilton County, which in reality is advocating for Colerain. And I think that this is something that ultimately we can get done and bring those funds back to the individual communities. But it's a heavy lift, but I'll continue to update you on. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. The Northbrook Cleanup Day. What an amazing undertaking. There was one man that bought his grandma's house, and I left, and he was on his 7th carload. And lots of people taking a lot of stuff from that. That was kind of funny. And our Eric Riefenbacher that collects cans and metal, we had a big scrap metal pile for him, and some scrapper came and took all that away. So sorry, Chief, a little less in our pocket for next year. We had the Matt Haverkamp Foundation 5K run, and Brian Huntington and K9 Teo were honored along with some other officers. That was a nice coup for Colerain. And the Kia, we talked about the steering wheel locks. It went viral. Just letting everybody know, we had 168,000 people that clicked onto that. Thank you, Helen, for that out there. And the podcast, Hey Colerain, has been a success. It has been rebooted with 87 downloads in the last 30 days. And fire department's Message in a Minute was also very impactful. The latest videos talked about the importance of sleeping with your door closed in case of a fire breaks out. That had 260 views in 11 days. And the fire department had their CPR education blitz. 70 people did show up, and they were certified with their life-saving skill classes. There's another class being offered between January 24th and March 30th. Okay, and the 43rd Annual Citizens Police Academy class graduate is on April 27th. So those are some of the updates from Colerain Township.
Thank you, Kathy. There's a marvelous family in this township that has done so much for the community, and that would be the Clippard family. Yeah. And it is sad that the patriarch of that family, Bob Clippard, passed away recently, and his funeral happens to be Thursday morning at 10 o'clock at White Oak Christian Church. I've known several of the family members. My wife has taught a couple of these grandchildren that are listed in the obit, and they are just, I've been a 23-year member of Clippard YMCA, and that family employs a lot of people here in the township, and they have just been nothing but kind and generous. So our sympathy on the loss of Bob, the patriarch of the family. After the last meeting, I took a personal trip to Los Angeles for a personal reason, to go visit someone. I was out there, and it's a beautiful place. I've been there several times in my life, always for recreational reasons and not for business, just to do various things there. And you drive along, and you have beautiful areas, and then you go from Los Angeles into Culver City, for instance, and you run into an unbelievable amount of trash on the side of the road. And you go underneath some of these underpasses on the highway, and people think that's a place to go live. And I asked why that is. Why doesn't this get cleaned up? And they said, well, they do clean it up, and these folks come back the next day. They just want to live outside. It's unsanitary. There's trash. I don't understand why it isn't picked up. Los Angeles is a huge place. Comparatively, Colerain Township is a very small place. We will never let anything here get into that condition without addressing it. And to that end, the program that we started here a couple years ago with hiring a couple 20-hour pickup people to go out and just spot pickup areas where trash is, and getting that pickup truck together, and then putting Officer Henry Boyd as one of the leaders in that effort. I think our staff does a phenomenal job addressing these issues before they get out of control. It's two entirely different places, but we never, 10, 20, 50 years from now, we never, ever want to become the mess that is out there. And there's a lot of nice areas, and I don't mean to talk bad about that city, but that's why this board and previous boards have been so hell-bent on keeping the place cleaned up to the best of our ability. I always advertise my number, 404-3057. I got 2 calls this morning. One, there's a guy out on Kemper that just won't get it together and get things cleaned up. And I passed that along to Officer Boyd, and it was a few hours later, I got a call from a person I hear from occasionally over on Jackie's. And there's several known rental homes over there with 1.5-foot tall grass. And I mean, I think we've just developed a relationship with the 3 of us and our code enforcement and Officer Boyd, where we're out addressing that stuff as it comes up, and just hats off to him for the phenomenal work he does. He spent a good part of the day Saturday up at the Northbrook cleanup, which would bring me to my next item of cleanup day. I just stopped by to say hi, and I ended up in a pickup truck with Mike Evangelo going over, making a few trips over to Marino to help a citizen that just needed some help, a guy that let his yard get a little out of control with junk, and he can hardly breathe due to some issues, and he just wasn't physically capable of moving that. So just like our presenters here from Colerain, sometimes people just need a little bit of help, and if you need that help, let's see if we can help you or not. I would like to address a couple of the items from citizen comment. The business about the lighting assessment fund used to pay salaries, I'm sure there's a story and an answer behind that. That's never been brought to my attention before. As far as the comments about 3 times the space in the firehouses, I don't know that it's that much of a change as 3 times, but I'll leave that as it is. The firehouse up at Dunlap, I went up there with Frank Cook one day, and I've been past there my whole life. When you pull the garage door down, the more modern fire equipment we have in there, there's 6 inches of clearance. That place has been too small since forever, since it was built. And that's why we're moving it to another location, and it's going to be a bigger firehouse. As far as the one on Galbraith, that was built at a time when there was no consideration of female firefighters, and it was built more as a volunteer station without living accommodations. And the times I've been there, that place is busy as anything, and I'm fine with increasing the size of them. This board is going to make a decision that's going to last way out into the future. If I look at the group that decided on constructing this building, it's a pretty decent building, but there's been some problems with it that weren't considered in the 90s, like the building controls and some gutter issues and just stuff that some of the concrete right out in front carries vehicular traffic that needed to be changed out, probably because it wasn't based in correctly at the time, and those little issues. I want to make sure we're doing these right, that they last a lot longer than the 3 of us are walking the earth, and so that would be my comments about why the size of the firehouses have increased. Costs in the construction industry have skyrocketed and continue to skyrocket due to a lot of reasons, and I've detailed those in previous meetings, whether it's the cost of fuel, which is reflected in any construction material, and the delivery, the manufacture and delivery and placement, and the amount of money it costs to have construction crews set up and stage at a job site for so long. So I understand that. I'm no fan of it either, but I understand that based on decisions that voters nationally have made, that's why we're in the situation we're in with inflation. And I think you have it detailed. The construction inflation has been double digits just the last 2 years. And we've put this in your hands and your owner's rep that we have, and I trust that when this comes up for debate this evening, that you'll assure us, and Fire Chief will assure us that that's what the number is. So We haven't turned the first shovel of dirt yet, but that's why if there's going to be changes in the pricing, those need to be discussed and voted on now. So I have no other comments, so thank you.
Just to let you know, the population of Colerain Township and the population of the homeless in LA, there's about 7,000 to 10,000 more homeless people than there are in the population of Colerain Township.
Oh, they're all over the place out there.
It's between 67 and 70,000 people in LA.
I flew out there the next morning after
Oh,
that
I
meeting that
I
you kept
drove
me here
around
so
there,
late
yeah.
for.
So, yeah.
Los Angeles made their mistake when they stole the Dodgers out of Brooklyn.
Do you have anything else you want to add tonight?
I forgot to mention,
I know.
Thursday night begins the NFL draft, where the front-running Bengals for the Super Bowl begin to restock.
That's important for Colerain. Okay.
That's important for everyone.
New business.
Sure, and the first 3 items in new business tonight will be presented by Chief Alan Walls from the Fire Department.
See, I almost forgot.
Chief, welcome back.
Thank you, and good evening to the board and those of you still in attendance. First item tonight, we have a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Hamilton County Public Health for Public Health Coordinator Services, and we recommend adoption of that motion.
I motion we authorize the Township Administrator to execute a memorandum of understanding with Hamilton County Public Health for Public Health Coordinator Services.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
No, I've read through it and I understand it.
And the package for the agreement is in our agenda package?
That's correct, and from a transparency standpoint, there is no cost to the township. It's a grant that is paying for this through August 31st of 2023.
Thank you so much for getting a renewal on this. I think that I've pretty much beat the drums on this a number of times, that this is a way to change the delivery mechanism for EMS and those services. And if we're going to get around the curve of increased calls, it's to stop it at the roots. And I think this is a helpful tool in doing that.
No other comments from me.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
And the next item is also in the Fire Department, and that is a motion to increase the capital purchase for the fire station project by $3.1 million. I would recommend adoption of that motion, but to tee this up, there's going to be some other movement that is associated with this in the permanent appropriations modification that's later on in the agenda. So depending on this discussion and decision, that will impact that future agenda item. But we've been working closely with our architects, our construction company, as well as our project manager to really dial in on the scope of the project. As Mr. Unger alluded to, we've seen double-digit increases, 11.5% increase in inflation for construction costs in 2021, and 14.1% increases in construction costs in 2022. So we're not anticipating this to slow. So if we were to decide to not move forward with this change, I think what we'd be talking about is really changing the scope of the projects to be one station, not two. I personally see a need for both stations to be replaced. We believe that should we be successful and you all approve this recommendation tonight, that we would go back to our project manager, our project engineer, as well as our project construction company, and ask them that they sign the GMP ASAP for this increased amount. We do not want to come back again to ask for additional funds. And once we get locked in on that GMP, we hope to move full steam ahead on the project. As we've kind of walked through different areas, we've identified some funding sources that we think can handle this project. And so happy to answer questions that you all may have, or any questions related to this item.
So for the public, the GNP, once we sign that, there will be no overages. That is the price that we will.
Locked in guaranteed maximum price.
Okay. And you had mentioned also that they are also going out to some of the vendors to see if we can renegotiate any of.
So that's where we are right now. So what is happening is the architects are working on their final drawings, and as they're updating their drawings, they're supplying information to the construction management firm. So they'll say, hey, this most recent iteration is going to call for, let's say, 10 steel beams. So then the construction management firm is going around and they're going to all of their vendors in their market and they're pricing out what would that cost be. And they're developing a range for that cost at this date and time. And so that's how we're kind of moving on a pathway. Typically the GMP is signed at 90% drawings. So that's like basically almost your last iteration of the construction drawings. I think we're at about the 65 to 75% drawings right now, but I feel comfortable that if we were to get approval here to move back to the construction company and say, look, I know it's a little earlier than you guys would want to, but we need to lock in. I'm not comfortable continuing to move forward without that GMP in place.
Okay. And our other two fire stations, they've been in existence for 60 to 70 years, correct? So we're not looking for, we're looking at generations that are going to be using.
Correct. And if I may real quick, I want to address the qualifications of our owner's representative. So Bob Shaw of the Omer Shaw Group, which is our owner's representative, has a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Cincinnati. In addition, he's a licensed professional engineer by the National Society of Professional Engineers. So Bob is very versed in everything that we need as an owner's representative. So, you know, the nice thing with Bob is he holds the architect and the construction manager their feet to the fire. And in fact, and only my personal opinion, I think hiring Bob is probably one of the best decisions that we've made with this project. So I want to assure the public and the board that, you know, our owner's representative is very versed in what he does and nothing slides by him.
And we're not building these for today's needs. We're building them for today and tomorrow's need, correct?
For today and tomorrow, exactly.
Yes.
What we don't want to do is build fire stations for yesterday.
Yes.
Well, I will go ahead to, so we can continue the discussion, I will go ahead and motion that we would increase the capital purchase of the Colerain Township fire stations by $3,100,000.
I'll second that.
And just looking in here, it looks like you've got that at $516 a square foot, which actually comes out to $15,040 and $247. So
That's correct.
just $40,247. I talked to you last week about this extensively, and I understand where you're at on it, and I've got confidence in you that you're going to deliver this. Ultimately, you're the department head.
Correct.
And I've got confidence you're going to deliver it at that price. We have not turned the first shovel of dirt, and I would rather be having these conversations now than have, you know, when we're 6 months into the project and
Right.
and there's issues. So this is the right time to have the conversation.
I also had slight discussions with Mr. Weckbach, more with Ms. Mays and with Chief, and we talked about some ways that we found some funding within fire to take care of this. Look, this is kind of a gut shot for me. I'm not happy with the increased price either. In fact, my comment to you, I'll just share, was I'm sorry we didn't do it sooner, which would have saved us some money. And, you know, I wish we would have had the foresight to pursue that sooner, but I'm not going to make that mistake again. And when they say, again, I'll repeat that line, that they don't anticipate the prices going down or whatever the exact quote was, that means that if we wait 5 years, it's going to be more. And I'm fully cognizant of that after just being through this experience with not addressing this maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, so I support this, and I know that the chief has struggled with cutting costs to the point where someone told me you were comparing different types of garage doors.
So to be clear about things, we've looked at all construction types. We've looked at CMU, which is masonry block and brick. We've looked at precast. We've looked at pre-engineered metal. We've looked at various different garage doors. We have scraped and clawed, and we've cut a bay at Station 102. We've cut the community room at Station 26. We have, even at our last meeting, and these are very efficiently designed buildings based upon a rectangle and a square. They were able to eke out a couple hundred additional square feet. It doesn't sound like much, but 100 square feet, $517. You can do the math. It's over $100,000 that we're able to save doing that. So with the help of Bob Shaw and his expertise, we are nailing it down not only by the square foot, but the square inch sometimes.
And Chief, I'd like to also mention that the citizen that spoke during citizen's address, I wish he would have stuck around to hear this discussion. He left immediately after that, and I wish he was here, you know, 'cause for additional input or whatever challenges he might have to you, but he has left. So,
Even, just even to go on with the construction costs, you can't build even a low-end house, all vinyl sided, 1,800 square house is still gonna cost you over $400 and something thousand. So that's $200 and something a square foot, and that doesn't have all the needs and gadgets that we need for a firehouse. So at $516 a square foot, so.
so if this is approved, what would be the next step? When would we turn dirt on it?
So tomorrow morning, I'll be giving Pepper Construction and Immersion Design calls to let them know and to start the process, get GMP in place. I'll have to revisit our current timelines, but as soon as we finish all of our architectural drawings and they start to go through the process, that's when we can start the process to get the permits to start turning dirt. Pepper,
Just in relation to this construction season, it's late April right
yep,
now.
Pepper has told us they need 12 full months from start to finish. They have a deadline of December 2024 to be complete. I believe that we would like to start turning dirt sometime later this summer so that we could at least get the earthwork and foundations and things like that done before any of the freeze starts to set in.
Right. And another thing you mentioned in the comments in the agenda is that this additional funding is part of, we're able to reallocate some funding from the American Rescue Plan, which has to be spent, or we have to send it back to the federal government, which I don't know where they come up with that money except print it, and that's why inflation is what it is, because they've dumped so much money into the economy. But this is money from the American Rescue Plan. Earlier in the meeting, when Jeff McElravy was presenting his financial report, we took $2 million of that and put it into the road program. So this year we're doing the 2023 and the 2024 road program all this year, so we can just get a little bit ahead on our road repairs. So that's where this money's coming from, and that's what we're spending it on. So firehouses and road repairs.
And I just want to make sure, if we accounted for any costs that would be incurred, I guess in the process of moving.
Yeah, so I think when we're talking about things like furniture build out and like equipment like the weight room and things like that, that's all accounted for. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of stuff that's actually going to move from the old station to the new station.
Okay, and since both stations are going to be on new land, it'll be like Monday this one closes and Tuesday the next one opens, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, operationally, we're going to have to make sure that we've got all of our ducks in a row with the county so that they know now, like, new location and which is actually now going to be the closest unit, because some of our districts are going to shift a little bit, I believe.
Right.
But fill out a change of address form.
Exactly. Once our change of address form is done, we will be able to move in.
And the one thing that you and I have discussed, and I'm heartened by, is there appears to, I do not want to hold multiple land, and we have the 2 fire stations that will be closed down, and we also have a training center, and we have interest in all 3 properties, I assume, or from our discussions, and that's good too. So I don't want to leave a footprint behind. I see too many jurisdictions that make a move like this and just leave the old one, and then it becomes a nightmare with taking care of it. We're not going to do that.
And the last thing, Alan, over our past year of discussion, you are going to stick around till these places are open and running.
It's my intention.
So that's a yes.
Let's get them done.
Okay.
That is a yes.
That is a yes.
Okay, good.
And if I may, real quick, just so everybody understands, GMP, or guaranteed maximum price, here or watching virtually.
Thank you.
Hence, with the construction manager at risk that we have, once that GMP is signed, if they go over, that's on them.
Right.
So that's why we need to get that GMP signed as quickly as possible.
And it's on them, they can't cut anything that we have in the design.
Internet.
It's on them.
And that's why typically they're reluctant to sign a GMP until
Right.
you get to 90% drawings, because they want to know that, like, if we're at 65%, they're, you know, we could show up tomorrow and say, well, let's add 10 more things in now that we signed a GMP. Well, that's not okay. So that's where we've all got to be at a very good understanding that the 65% drawings are going to be as close as possible to the
And we're
90.
not going to show up tomorrow and add 10 more things, just so everybody knows.
Well, if we did, that would be an extra.
Correct.
So
On us.
we're not doing that, so, okay. I don't have any other comments.
Good.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
And then lastly, we have a motion to authorize the township administrator to execute a business associate agreement with Rainbow Health LLC for $16,000. And we recommend adoption of the motion. That $16,000 includes a $3,000 one-time startup charge, and every year thereafter it'll be $13,000. And that software is for the community paramedicine program.
You make a motion.
It just went off my screen.
I'll motion to authorize the township administrator to execute a business associate agreement with Rainbow Health LLC for $16,000.
I'll second. Any discussions?
It is, and I just said it just went off my screen. What has just popped up, the entire agreement is here. It's in the agenda. It's a lot of pages, so.
A lot of HIPAA stuff.
I did look through it the other day. No other comments?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next items tonight are actually all in the
Thank you,
police
Chief.
department. So if Chief Ed Cordy would like to come up for the next 3 items.
That's one long contract.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Item D I have before you is the resolution declaring a nuisance and ordering abatements. Recommend adoption of the resolution at the following addresses: 2378 Lincoln, 3227 Niagara Street, 2520 Springdale Road, 3475 Springdale Road, 3084 West Galbraith Road, 3261 West Galbraith Road.
I motion that we declare a nuisance and order abatement at the properties as described by Chief Cordy.
Second.
Discussion?
That 2520 Springdale, I will have to double check. I thought I saw that in the list of properties to be auctioned by the room 260 down at the foreclosure auction. So if we clean that up, we'll certainly want to make sure that that gets in there before that any charges for it get in before the auction. I'd have to go back and look if that was the address.
Yeah, and even if the charges were to get in there before the auction, it's not going to show up on the tax duplicate until next year. So if somebody were to buy that property, they would have that on their tax bill for next year. So.
And I always wondered if we should be taking those to the recorder's office so that it showed up at transfer, you know, when you go to close on a piece of property. And of course, that would raise the price of it. I think it's, it might be $51 to file it plus our time to run down there.
That's what I was going to say. So that's sort of the balancing act to it is.
Right, and I hate to, because ultimately the property owner's gonna end up paying that.
Or the downside is property owner never pays it, goes into tax foreclosure, no one buys it because they don't see value in the property, reverts to the Port Authority or someone else, they waive all the taxes, and then we're out all the dollars that we invested.
I have no other comments.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you. Item E, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2813 Banning Road. 2 vehicles on this property. First one being a 2003 red Cadillac sedan, second one being a 1997 black Chevy Tahoe. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I recommend we adopt a resolution declaring the junk motor vehicles at 2813 Banning Road as described by Chief Cordy.
I'll second.
No comments from me.
Nothing.
No.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you. Item F, motion to issue a noise resolution permit to Quaker Steak and Lube. This is the first request for the permit for 2023 for this business. The request is for the permit is for Thursday, April 27th through October 12th of 2023. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
Is that for every Thursday or?
Thursday nights on bike nights.
Right, just double checking.
And when did you say the start date was on that?
The initial request was for April 13th, but
Okay.
it had to be modified
April 27th.
to the 27th.
Okay.
And as a reminder, this is one of those items that should you approve it tonight, please sign it before you leave.
Okay.
Nothing for me.
We got to-
Okay.
You got a motion?
Okay, I'll motion to issue noise resolution permit to Quaker Steak and Lube.
I'll second it.
We discussed already?
Fine local business. A lot of people go there and they have a nice time. No other comments from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Chief Cordy. The next items tonight are for public services, and they will be presented by Assistant Administrator Mays.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, we've got 3 items under the public services agenda. The first is a resolution to approve or deny acceptance of Dunlap, Mel Carl, and Grovewood Drive as township roads. This information can be found on page 40 of your agenda packet. Staff is seeking guidance on this issue.
I'm going to motion to table the resolution to approve or deny acceptance of Dunlap, Mel Curl, and Grovewood Drive as township roads. I'm under the understanding that that is the development off of Springdale, Dunlap, Grove, that they plan on.
So we can discuss it.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and second Matt's motion to table.
And they plan to build 66 units, of which they only have 11 built. Is that correct?
It's 15.
15, but
Okay, 15, and, we've been through this once before with the county. What I'd like to do, and I know last time it didn't work out so well, I'd like to have them down once again and show them. Last time we did this, they went ahead and approved it anyway, and if they do that again, then that will leave the ball in our court to take the next step. But, 14 of 66 is, what's that, my math tells me, about 20%? They're going to tear up those roads as they build those others, and I don't want to be responsible for that, and I don't think we should.
I'm in agreement with that. Yeah. Shouldn't we just deny it versus just table it?
I think we'd be better off tabling it as long as we're still discussing it.
My position to table it is let's give them another chance to bring them to the table, so to speak, so that we can talk about some of the issues we have with this quick approval process and see that if we could get cooperation on that level. If not, I'm prepared to go to the to our state representatives, our state senators, and say, look, this is not working for us when we don't have any input into it.
Our typical take back the roads are usually when the development is at least 50%.
Ideally, that would be a great time for it because the heavy equipment's going to continue to run on those streets. It's going to continue to do damage over the course of the coming year. So these maintenance bonds that are required to be held are for a 1-year period. Nothing to say that the developer doesn't just pause for a year while interest rates are really high and then come back in a year and a half, and then we're stuck with the liability and no surety to.
We are headed towards a recession, and building costs keep going up.
A question for you all that may or may not help. I can certainly reach out to the engineer's office, but I could certainly also ask them if they'd be willing to come to the next meeting to present this item to us more formally and have a conversation about their standards and their subdivision guidelines and the process that they go through to evaluate whether or not they would like to accept a street.
Yeah, I think that last time being at the site made a difference because there were some questions with how the road was built. I think in this instance, I think we just have a philosophical disagreement over what point that should be given to the township, and it'll be interesting to see if they come having already forced it on us like they did last time.
They did.
So I can reach out to them, share some of the things that you all said, as well as invite them to our next board meeting to discuss the item further.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to table this, correct?
Yeah, in a second. We had a motion by myself and a table by a second by Mr.
Seconded it.
Yes.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item is item B, a motion directing Township Administrator to sign the 2024 Stormwater District Level of Service and Estimated Service Fee Form. This information can be found on your agenda packets on page 45. I can go on to explain a few things, but ultimately, the township households are being charged for, because we don't have our own water district service, the county is charging our residents to keep up with the EPA requirements that are federally and state ordained. So staff is seeking guidance on whether or not to sign the 2024 Stormwater District Level of Service and Estimated Service Fee Form that is found in your packets.
I'm going to go ahead to the motion to table this as well. The motion directing Township Administrator to sign the 2024 Stormwater District Level of Service and Estimated Service Fee Form.
And I'll second it so we can discuss it, and it might not pass the table, but, so now we can discuss, why do you want to table it?
All right, so my reasoning for tabling this, multiple. First off, this amounts to some, last year it was first time I ever got to turn the mic on. I usually don't get that. It's $650,000 to $700,000 a year that is charged to townships residents through the county for the stormwater district. When I was named to the solid waste board, it was kind of contingent on I wanted to be on this board as well to get an inside look as to what's going on. I talked to Mr. Long from that board about 2 weeks ago, and somehow they missed all that. So I'm going to be named to that board as well. My contention on this is that, again, I'd like to look at how this relationship works, because you have townships are forced to join this, and for $650,000, $700,000, we can buy some engineers for that to work on stormwater issues. We're forced to join this, yet cities and villages, I believe, according to the ORC, are not required to join this. And I think that there's a disconnect here. And again, as a township person, I just want to be treated like everybody else. I don't want a separate set of rules for cities and villages. They can opt out. Why can't we opt out? And why can't we hire our own engineer and save the taxpayers that money? And that's something that I've kind of been, Mr. Weckback and I first discussed this probably about 18 months ago, and that's still something that I want to address with them. They only meet every quarter, so it's by the time I realize that they haven't had a meeting for 6 months with me, and I'm like, wait a second, I'm supposed to be here, and I follow up with Mr. Long, and they're going to address that and put that on the agenda. But to give us a seat at the table. So I guess my reason for tabling it, to answer Mr. Unger specifically, is I want to come back with more information on when the next meeting is, if I'll be installed in that, and if I'll be in a position to perhaps at least suggest this relationship be changed.
So to clarify for my own administrative purposes, is this intended to be an indefinite table until you have more information?
No, a brief table of...
Just till the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
It says here that it would need to be, send it to the district office by May 10th, so it would have to be on the May 9th agenda.
And I will tell you, the last two I voted no on, because of the reasons I outlined. But again, it doesn't matter how we vote on this. So I don't even know, it doesn't matter if we don't send it in. I mean, but yeah, it would have to be, I could have that information for you for the next meeting and be prepared to vote on it then.
Okay, and it's in the agenda here, and it looks like, and I know on my property tax bill that $15.14 sounds like about what it is on my bill. And I guess what we're looking for is, the total collection looks to be $513,000. I guess what we're looking for is, hey, county, come in here and spend $500,000 on some drainage projects that are in Colerain. Is that the problem, that we're not getting?
Yeah, so
$500,000 worth?
So there are a lot of different fees in place for stormwater. So you've got stormwater fees here for the property taxes. Some go to the Hamilton County Engineer's Office for their stormwater work. Some go to Hamilton County Planning and Development for a different type of stormwater work. Then there are dollars that are used for soil and water. There are dollars related to MSD, waterworks, all these different groups. When you look at the landscape of how these dollars shake out and what they get spent on just about everything you can imagine related to stormwater except for infrastructure projects. And when I say infrastructure, I mean fixing stormwater issues. So, like, we're aware, just being a part of the West Branch of the Mill Creek, that we have several areas of our community that do flood, and they flood quite a bit. And there are some real tangible solutions that could be done to address that flooding, but it requires significant capital dollars. And I guess what I would love to see is the ability for there to be a grant program or something where some of these dollars are coming back to the local communities to do that work, to provide a more well-rounded stormwater system that works the way that we want it to work.
If you look at their annual reports, it seems to me that most of the funds are spent on outreach and education. They have a giant water bubble that walks around and teaches kids about things. And as far as an added value, not only do I feel that we don't get $500,000 worth, I think I said it was 6, it's 5. I don't know that we get 100,000 out of it, and that's my issue. I think some of the funds are used in when they come out and look at properties and things like that. So that's something that when you have stormwater come out and look at a potential new neighborhood or something like that, I think that includes some of those funds as well. But if you look at their annual reports, it's not, I feel the level of service and benefit to the township could be increased. And, all you need to do is point to the fact that cities and townships say no.
Well, even if we do say no, it doesn't mean we're not going to be charged.
We will still be members of the district.
Right.
I think it's more of a philosophical message being sent if the vote is no.
We're still being charged,
And-
so,
and
right.
To be honest, there are some free rider issues here. So some of the services that you mentioned are used to maintain the EPA permits that are required for stormwater. But some of the agencies that they consult with provide those services on behalf of all communities in Hamilton County. So the education outreach is a big component of that permit. They don't only do education in just the townships, which would potentially make sense, but they put out newsletters and briefs to the entirety of
To
Hamilton
cities
County.
and villages who opt out.
Yes, exactly. And so they're able to satisfy those permit requirements without being a member because of these services that are being provided for.
Well, that's interesting. I'll make one other comment, Matt, while we're sitting here in session. I get calls from people. I went out in East Miami River Road near where Dry Ridge connects to East Miami River Road and a fella invited me onto his property because I can stand on his property and that all that new pavement is it's so undermined off the side of the road from a county-owned pipe that runs under the road right there that I would say in the next 5 years, the westbound lane of East Miami River Road is going to be in that guy's yard. So that would be an example of a project where they could spend $500,000 saving their own road that happens to be in Colerain Township. And I'd hate to think they're just going to wait till it collapses to address it. So as you go find more information and we bring this back May 9th, if the motion passes the table, I'd ask you to you can talk to Jeff, and I think I sent you those details on that guy a while back. His name doesn't come blazing to mind, but that's an example of a project, a major project in our township on a county road that's going to have a significant failure. And
I know Thursday that the engineer's having the open house for trustees, but I think I have 5 of
that's probably not the place to.
Right, and I have 5 events that night, so it's a little hard to.
Right.
And I would encourage you all to give Mr. Beck and his team a call directly. I know he's usually pretty responsive and will at least listen to some of the concerns that we're sharing, and sometimes it's helpful to have more than one person call.
But, so as we go to vote on tabling this, please make sure it's on the May 9th agenda so that we meet this deadline of May 10th.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes, and thank you both for your support on that.
Not getting too far with us tonight, are you?
We're good. I think the last one I'm
Better luck on the next one.
C is a good one. We'll go right through that one, yeah.
It's like playing for the Reds, 0 for 2.
The third item is a motion authorizing the township administrator to execute an agreement with Welch Sand and Gravel Incorporated for dredge work in the Great Miami River along Drayville Park. Information on this item can be found on page 47 in your agenda packet. In a presentation to the trustees at the April 11th meeting, Jim Welch, owner of Welch Sand and Gravel Incorporated, reviewed the steps needed to apply for a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers to dredge a section of the Great Miami River on the waterfront of Drayville Park. Staff recommendation is an approval of the motion.
A motion to authorize the Township Administrator to execute contract with Welsh Sand and Gravel for dredging work in the Great Miami River along Drayville Park.
I'll second.
Mr. Weckback, when we have a weekly discussion here, and my notes indicate that one question, I don't know if you had a chance to look into, is there was talk about maintaining the permit, which the origination cost is $25,000 a year. And the question I had, it seemed as if Mr. Welch's presentation is that that we would maintain, after the first year, we would maintain that permit and the cost for it. Did I misunderstand that, A? And B, what is the annual renewal? I'm sure it's not $25,000 a year.
I am not aware of what the annual renewal piece is.
Oh,
but
there, right there, okay.
Welch is here, yeah.
Yeah.
Had a lot more fun than last trustees meeting. It's not an annually renewing permit fee. Our company's gonna pay the permit fee
Right.
and the engineering. You have to have a very detailed engineering, EPA permits and that sort of thing. There is no repetitive fee.
Okay.
So, and we're paying the first fee, so there's no cost to the township. The benefit to us is remove the gravel and restore that area. The reason we want the permit to take a maintenance form, the same thing is going to reoccur in a few years. Now, after the initial removal of the material, the canoe ramp will again have launching water, and we've done this many years ago for the township. They were suffering a lot of erosion, and we had a permit at that time, and we basically restored the river channel.
So when you said that the township maintained the permit, that's a question of just filing paperwork and keeping compliant?
Well, no, the permit, when the permit's issued, it'll probably for 3 years or more. After the initial removal, obviously, as long as there's water there and it doesn't reaccumulate. The reason it reaccumulates is because of the old C&O railroad piers.
Right.
Slows the water down, it deposits gravel, you know. So the township's been blessed by Mother Nature for a lot of gravel. So anyway, but the reason the permit needs to stay active, and it's at the disposition of the township to use or let it go for a while. And we don't want it to expire. And the last permit that was there was for maintenance, and there was certain individuals that wanted to expire the contract. It could still be permit. It could still be in existence, but it's important to keep the permit active. You don't want to go through the permit process again. So as long as it can be done, it can be maintained, and that whole area can be corrected. But our company pays the permit fee. There's no cost to the county, and there shouldn't be a renewal fee. And certainly if it was, you don't redo the engineering and stuff like that. So it'd be minor, and even at that, it would be our expense. So
Okay.
There's no cost to the county. It's not a repetitive fee.
Okay.
If we sign this tonight, when do you start?
Well, the permit process is long and arduous.
Right.
Years ago, if you wanted a Corps permit, send me a postage stamp and a check. But now it's all engineering, it's EPA. The process for mining has changed to what they call one step. You know, it comes out of the water, goes in the truck, and off it goes. There's no run-in of water back into the river. Upon the approval by the trustees, we will start the engineering process. And like I said, it's totally at our expense. There's a company in Columbus that does this type of permits. We've discussed it with them already, so they're ready to go. It doesn't mean that this is shoe-in, you know, it takes a long time, and if it's presented in the right way for flood control, maintenance, you know, there's a good chance that they would issue a permit. We're currently operating 2 other river permits, one for the City of Hamilton and Miami Conservancy in Hamilton. That's at the Black Street Bridge, and another for that's actually in Crosby Township. That's also on the Great Miami. So, but anyway, we would need, once this is approved, once the permit is actually filed. I think Dennis or Mr. Chapman some years ago gave a support letter basically, and why it's being needed and so forth. That will go in with the permit. So it's a well-intended project. Our benefit, and once the permit is awarded or approved, then our payment to the Park District, which is what was promised in the contract, would be paid in full. And other than that, good to go.
Well, I think a lot of kids would like to come watch that at Dravo Park. Yeah, so
Kids, I'm coming out.
I know, you got to let us know so we can have a little picnic out of Dravo.
Heavy equipment.
Yeah, you know,
Welch,
kids,
I appreciate you being here to answer questions that the board would have, and I'd go back to my comments from April 11th that I think it's a win-win for the township because we don't want any more of that frontage to fall in the river, and by controlling the water flow and getting the gravel and sand out, that improves the flow line of the river.
Dredging is a necessary thing in almost virtually every river in the United States, for if not for navigable waterways. When gravel forms in a river, it increases pressure on both banks. You can actually see in our diagrams how the banks on both sides have ballooned. That's because of the bridge piers collecting gravel there. So, you know, it's a matter of maintenance, and when you don't see gravel bars, the river is just perfectly within its banks, and of course we're in the gravel business, so we benefit from the aggregate, and none of this would affect the property at the park. You know, the trucks would come immediately on our property. We own property on both sides of the river, so between us and the township, there's no neighbors or anything like that. We own both sides of Patty's Run Creek. We lease farms to Nolman's and Burwinkles.
My comments on an earlier topic about fuel prices and how they're affecting the construction is that if the fuel prices, here's a softball, have the fuel prices affected your company?
Yes. Well, most significantly, we use about 3 to 4 transport loads of fuel a month, which is 7,500 gallons times 4. The good news is it's kind of come down here lately. Diesel fuel, gasoline is back. We were paying as high as $5 a gallon. Now it's $4.20 or something like that. So our company does have construction projects around Butler County. We have subdivisions, commercial parks, stuff like that. But we're actually seeing a little bit of reduction right now.
But it's still $2 higher than it was.
Except for prevailing wage firehouse billers.
It still is several dollars higher than it was 3 years ago.
Yeah,
and it's just
gas was $2. Diesel fuel is about 3 something, and for whatever reason, diesel fuel has increased exponentially. There used to be a relationship to gas; it was cheap, and now it's a spread.
It's during the distillation process of a barrel of oil, because that also affects the price of the asphalt that's in the bottom of the so-called bottom of the barrel. And those prices one goes up and the other one goes down.
We've seen many increases in concrete. Our company owns the IMI plant in New Miami. And
it's got to be killing you. That's why concrete's $110 a yard.
Yeah, we're paying $131 right now.
it's way more than that.
But it used to be $50 and $60.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, if this passes, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to leave here with a signed copy tonight. Would you be prepared to sign that if this passes?
Got it right in front of me to sign as soon as it.
Awesome.
I'll have Tiffany.
Well, just stick around so you leave here with it. That way you're not.
All right, good.
Just
All right.
hang loose for a minute.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. There are no items in development tonight, and the next 2 items in administration will be presented by Assistant Administrator Jeff McElravy.
Can he sign that and have her make a copy so he can get going?
He's having fun, aren't you?
So the next item on the agenda is on page 50 of your board packet. This is a resolution authorizing the adoption of amended appropriations. We got a little bit going on here, so I'm going to walk through each of the changes in appropriations, although a good chunk of this will be redundant based on prior items that are that the board has voted on this evening. So the first set of increases in appropriations is in the general fund, and this is for a total of $338,026. The first is for $23,026 to repay a fire escrow payment. There are usually one or two fires where we receive an escrow payment that we hold until the repair work is completed, and then we refund that money to the homeowner. It's the value of the home that is subject to the fire changes from one year to the next, so these are difficult expenses to estimate. The second is $100,000. This is advancing some design work for two sidewalk projects, one on Pippin and the other on Springdale. The next is to have appropriations available for $15,000 to repay a performance bond. This is a property that has been much discussed in prior meetings at 9929 Capstan, where there's a rehabilitation process underway. And then finally is a transfer of $200,000 in fund balance from the general fund to the capital project fund for the construction of the two fire stations. The next set of increase in appropriations is for the police fund, and that's for a total of $2,443,300 in the police fund and in the law enforcement trust fund of $8,250. The majority of that increase is to return the salaries that were the salaries in the police department that were to be paid out of the American Rescue Plan funds to the police fund. There is also an appropriation for $235,800 for principal payments on the police cruisers. This capital lease program is a little screwy from an accounting standpoint. We have to book what's called a pass-through payment for the amount that is actually held by Huntington Bank, who runs the capital lease program on our behalf. And then we also have to appropriate for the debt service that we pay each year on the cruiser lease program. So to some extent, there's a little bit of double counting going on here, but this is the number that's necessary from an appropriation standpoint for debt service for this year on those cruisers. There's $95,000 increase in appropriations for cruiser replacements due to a number of cruisers that have been totaled. $31,500 for IT replacements, upgrades, and office supplies. $156,000 for equipment, including traffic investigation equipment, radios, body cameras, and tasers. And $25,000 in additional expenses for added officers. A lot of these expenses have to do with the equipment side of bringing additional officers on board. Obviously, we can't send them out on the street without the equipment that they need to do their jobs, and these appropriations will allow us to do that. The next increase in appropriations is from the fire fund. This is $1 million that is part of the 3.1 that needs to go to the capital project fund that we discussed earlier this evening. There's an increase of $40,000 in appropriations for the zoning fund, and this is for fees that were charged as part of our vacant and foreclosed registration programs. I would argue that this is actually a good thing. This means that this program is up and running and generating fees for us and also addressing some chronic problems with vacant and foreclosed properties, and as a result, the fees that they earn are increasing as well. It's forecast that this will be sufficient to get us through the calendar year. The next set of increases in appropriations are for our new TIF funds that we started collecting on this year. The Hamilton County Auditor charges us a fee for collecting and remitting property tax to us. So the total for those property tax collection fees for these new funds is $5,050, and it's an increase in appropriations in the same amount. Next is an increase in the bond retirement fund of $505,556. This gets us to the gross amount of debt service that is going to be due this year in June and December. What was in the budget was the net amount. So when we issued the debt, there was a bond premium. So we actually raised $13.1 million on a par value on the bonds of $12 million. And that difference is going to be used to pay down the debt service sooner so that the interest costs are reduced. And this increase in appropriations will align with that debt service schedule. The next increase is for the capital project fund, what we just discussed, to increase that by $3.1 million to receive the $200,000 increase in appropriations from the general fund, the $1 million increase in appropriations from the fire fund, and $1.9 million that will come from the fire fund that will be reallocated from the salaries line there because those salaries will now be paid out of the American Rescue Plan Fund. So I know that is a lot to digest. Happy to try to address any questions you might have.
To get it to the floor, I will go ahead and motion that we authorize the amended appropriations and amending the 2023 strategic plan and budget. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm reading it right.
I'll second.
So what you talked about with the bond retirement fund on that line 3101,
Yes.
could you tell me what you just said again?
Sure. So the net debt service that the township will be paying over the vast majority of the life of the debt is $800,000. But in the early years of the amortization schedule, there is an additional amount that is available to reduce the principal amount that we owe. It's called a bond premium or a capital project or capitalized interest.
Right.
And what this does is apply the it increases appropriations to be able to apply that amount, the $505,000, toward debt service in our June and December payments. So it's not.
So half of that in June and half of that in December, or something like that?
I think June is an interest-only payment, and then principal and interest due in December. But the point is that those are funds that were raised as a result of the bond issuance and the market conditions of that day, and who was interested in all that. So, so these funds are available just for that purpose, and it is necessary to make this appropriation in order for us to make debt service as we agreed to in the bond indenture.
And that's probably a one-time thing right at the beginning of the bond?
Correct.
Right at the beginning of the bond period. Okay, I understand.
Board, not technically an additional appropriation that we're asking for here, but something I did want to make note of and just get some feedback from you all on. We've been working closely with the folks down at Kissel Park Condominium Association. We believe that they are going to be on board with us moving forward with a sidewalk project on Joseph Road. So if it is at the pleasure of the board, as part of this appropriations, we have money in the budget in the sidewalk fund. There's $250,000 set aside. I would recommend that staff be directed to go back and start the design work on that project with the hope of securing grant funding to potentially start construction next year or the year after.
So that would be made as an amendment?
It would not need to be an amendment. This is just more of a, I guess I'm asking for consent from you all, and then I will bring back a future agenda item with a design firm to actually start the process. But I'm seeking to utilize those dollars that we set aside from the sidewalk waiver fund to cover those costs as I start to move forward.
I think that's fine. That's a lot to bring to this right now, and I'm all for putting sidewalks there. We've been talking about it for 10 years, but from the time they initially refused it, didn't we engage into some other projects?
We did, and so
Is this still the priority number one sidewalk, or do you have sidewalks going somewhere else that fund's already committed to?
So the sidewalk waiver fund does not have anything committed right now. We appropriate the dollars annually so that if a project like this comes up, it's a smoother process and a little quicker for us to be able to move. That way we can open purchase orders and things like that without first coming back to do that. We still have to bring contracts before you all. In the way that we've structured our sidewalk grant funding, because we continue to try to pile grant on top of grant for local matches and what have you, we've got a gap year because we were not awarded TA funds 2 years ago for a grant that we put in for. So actually, we're primed to be able to apply for SORTA funding for this, and then there are some county funds available that we would put in for as well. All of those deadlines are going to come up in the next month or two, and so that's why I'm just sort of asking for just sort of an initial feeling from you all that if I, in my mind, am working toward using those funds to pay for design services, I will look to cover the construction costs from grant funding.
So has that board at Kissel approved doing this, or you think they're going to approve it, or?
We met with them, and it seemed like a very positive direction from them. 2 of the 3 board members appeared to be on board. They took a straw vote of all the membership that was in the room, and I would say that about 80% of the folks in the room indicated that they would be in favor of
When is the
sidewalk.
meeting that they're going to approve it?
We would have to start with the design work to identify the exact right-of-way asks that we would have of them, and then it would be brought to them. So we're not 100% sure of all of the design and right-of-way asks that we're going to have, and so we need to re-engage with an engineering firm to figure out what those are. It appears as though it's going to be minimal, but it was worthwhile to have this first step to make sure that they understood what our ask was going to be.
What is the length of this sidewalk from Cheviot Road to?
Cheviot Road to Colerain, it would be northbound, or the north side of the roadway only. That's the plan as drafted, which we believe will allow us to overcome some of the hurdles and challenges that were present beforehand. A lot of the trees that were going to be likely taken out, which was a big point of contention, were on the southbound side of the road. And so this will create some great connectivity for those students that are leaving the high school.
So it would be along the Park District property?
Yes, sir. And church.
You know, there's such a cross slope there. I think it's going to be more expensive than you think it's going to be.
Yep.
You're going to have to cut back. I think we are going to have significant right-of-way issues, because to get that sidewalk without too much slope from one side to the other, you're going to have to cut way back into that dirt, and you're going to end up putting a fence there, and
the partners in terms of the Park District are willing to cooperate with us and understand from a governmental to government standpoint.
right, and they would replace that fence, because the fence is going to have to come out, and a number of other things. So are you looking for us to tell you to go ahead and start spending some of that money?
For design services with a qualified engineer to start drawing up those plans so we can apply for grant funding to likely get up to 100% of this covered.
And I'm comfortable with that. If that board's going to approve it, I'd hate to spend money on this and then have that board member flip.
So how much is a guesstimate and a range of the services that you're going to need from
I
this?
haven't asked yet, so
Okay.
that was, and that's where I was stating, if
Yeah.
the contract's over 10,000, I'm gonna be bringing that back to a future meeting
Okay,
anyway.
okay.
But I just like to have the funding source in mind.
Okay.
Go ahead, Matt.
No, go ahead, you were in.
I'd be fine spending money out of that if we think the project's going to go. It's just that the 10 to 12-year history of this is that somebody gets down there and, doesn't want to do it, and then we spent this money for nothing.
Yes.
So conceptually, I'm fine with it if that board's going to approve it.
Yeah, and this is something you and I have talked about for quite a long time. I think this is a number one need with the students that come from Colerain High School through that area. But and I think that the sense I got from talking to yourself and Mr. Miller is that the discussions went a lot differently this time around, and we made some offers that they were really happy with, I guess, especially with putting it on one side. So has that board changed, or is it the same?
I'm not sure if one of the 3 members has changed or not. 2 of the members were the same, I do know that for a fact.
Well, one of them must have changed because they were against it for years.
I think, if I recall correctly, back in 2018 and 19, when we last had this conversation with them, one of the board members was almost neutral in a way, that they did not want to pick a side, which in fact leads to no. So that was where we were, and there was a lot of feedback that the updated plan, just the fact that it would connect all the way to Colerain Avenue, they thought as a win. A lot of them saw it as a great opportunity for themselves to be better connected to the park, as well as the church and some of the other assets in the area.
For those watching at home, I went to a meeting 10 years ago with Maureen Heinz, who was the then principal of Colerain High School, and they had a lot of the people involved in the project, and this has been going on a very long time. I'm fine with it as long as you're confident that the board's not going to pull the rug out from under us after we spend money on design. So that's what, so you're asking for some input, there's my input, so.
Understood.
All right.
Did you have a conversation with him, Matt?
No,
Do you
not
feel-
not with the board, but with Mr. He's not back there, Mr. Miller. When I think I had a conversation with him the exact day. You guys, it was a Friday.
We met with them on a Thursday.
On a Thursday, and you were out on your. That's when you started your vacation. The next day, I think maybe you and I, and then Dave Miller and I had a discussion about it too, because this has been an important issue for me. It's also kind of important to point out here that that I think that the condominium complex there wants to maintain a positive relationship with the township. That kind of factored into the calculus of this as well. Would you say that would be accurate?
Yeah, and even more than that, I mean, it was just great to have the conversations with folks about some of their other concerns and issues and ways that we could help address them. Things like people parking in their neighborhood.
Which is an issue the first week of school, right, at Colerain?
Mm-hmm. So my question to you, Matt, is do you feel like that board's going to approve it? And you said you have not had a direct conversation.
No, I haven't had a direct conversation. The input I got from Mr. Weckback and Mr. Miller was all very positive, because to be completely honest, going into it, I thought that there's not a chance. I'm like, keep pushing, and we'll see if we can make some progress, and maybe over a couple-year period we'll get the buy-in. And when I got the reports back from the meeting, I was optimistic. I can't guarantee it to you.
It's a critical safety issue that.
Oh, absolutely.
I've been out there at 7:25, 7:35 in the morning. There's kids walking right down the middle of the street.
Exactly. They are, yeah.
But I just need to know that the board of Kissel is going to be positive, and so that's my thoughts. I have no other comments.
And that was a small item in this, so any other questions that you all have on the resolution, we are more than happy to answer.
He answered my other question. Do you have any questions for us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it's been motioned and seconded, so.
I'm looking at Mr. Baker.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
One more. The next item on your agenda is to authorize the transfer of funds to enact the appropriations that you just approved. So this resolution would authorize staff to transfer $200,000 from the general fund and $2.9 million from the fire fund to the capital project fire fund. And the staff recommendation is approval of the resolution.
I motion that we approve the resolution authorizing the transfer of township MONIES monies to another township fund. There's a typo on there.
I'll second.
Are you seconding the typo or the motion?
No, I'm seconding the motion.
That's why I spelled it. That's motioned and seconded. I have no other comments.
I don't have any comments.
If it passes and we sign it, I'm going to make a note of that typo so it's corrected.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, board.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, board. There's no old business on the agenda that I am aware of, and so the next items are in the consent agenda, and I believe I will introduce items A through O, and we can take items P and Q as a standalone. So first item is a new hire in the police department. That's for a police officer, Mr. Seth Hillman, at a rate of $37.50 per hour. We have a new hire, police cadet, Dylan Tamadong, at $15 per hour. In the fire department, we have a new hire, that's part-time firefighter EMT at $16.99 an hour, and that is Mr. Zach Duran. In the public services department, we have several hires. First of which is a part-time facility maintenance worker, Mr. Timothy Keys, at $17 per hour. We have a seasonal maintenance worker, Cameron Schmale, at $14 per hour. A seasonal maintenance worker, Justin Mativa, at $14 per hour. The Assistant Director of Summer Camp, that would be Greg Insco at $15 per hour. A Summer Camp Counselor, Elena Ward, at $11 per hour. Summer Camp Counselor Brady Bowden at $11.50 per hour. The Summer Camp Counselor Wesley Lucas at $11 per hour. Summer Camp Counselor Morgan Memory at $11 per hour. Summer Camp Counselor Olivia Howland at $11 per hour. Summer Camp Counselor Myra Banks at $11 per hour. Summer Camp Counselor Gina Horsley at $13 per hour. And a donation acceptance in the police department from the Ohio State Eagles in the amount of $5,000. And I would recommend approval of those items.
Motion that we approve the consent agenda items A through item O.
I'll second that.
So Greg Insco is going to come back where he started in the Township, right?
Maybe not as the assistant director where he started, but that is,
He said he started as a camp counselor years and years ago.
Yeah.
As a teenager.
I
Yeah.
believe so.
A big thank you to the Ohio State Eagles, and I will point out that item K, Morgan Memory, is in my sophomore homeroom at Elder, so despite that, I'm glad that you hired him.
Which one is it, Matt?
K, Morgan Memory.
Good, I'll have to see what you can tell me about your, about your class.
Okay, do we have a second? We second? Yep.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. And the last two items on the consent agenda are donation acceptance. The first is to the Police Department from Matt Wallard in the amount of $300, and the second is to the Fire Department from Matt Wallard for $300, and I would recommend approval of the consent items.
I motion that we accept the donation for the police department from Matt Wallert for $300 and the donation to the fire department from Matt Wallert for $300.
I'll second.
And I'll be abstaining.
Exactly.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Abstain.
Okay. Our fiscal officer report?
I have no report, Board. Thank you.
Okay. Well, do you want a motion to end this at
There's
9:26?
no need for another executive session, so
Okay.
I motion that we adjourn the meeting at 9:27 PM.
I'll second.
Okay, meeting is adjourned at 9:26.
We have to vote.
Sorry, I forgot to vote again. Vote to adjourn.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Still 9:26, the meeting's adjourned.